take this? Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on this beautiful day here in Prague. I'm very happy that you resisted to sit in the sunshine to be here and talk about AI and democracy. So yeah, I'm Brigitte van den Berg. I'm a member of the European Parliament since June from the Netherlands, and I want to tell you a little bit about my priorities and about the priorities of ELF, because I'm also a board member of ELF, of the European Liberal Forum. So in the Parliament, I focus on greenifying industry, making sure that the energy transition can be successful in a way that people can keep their jobs. Because I'm from an industrial area, one of the few in the Netherlands, and I see what it means to an area like that to have these huge changes, and I want to make them successful. The second thing I'm focusing on is vocational training and education, because I think that a lot of people that are vocational professionals do not feel that society appreciates them as much as they should. And we need so many vocational trained professionals in the future to make our world future-proof. And the third one is housing. I'm in the new housing committee of the European Parliament because I think housing is the topic, is the least you can expect from a government to make it sure that people can live in a good way, so they can live their life in freedom. And all these things, so all these topics, I can put together as saying, I'm trying to make Europe fit for the future and make the people fit for the future. And that future is going to be totally covered with AI technology. And I think it's important that we don't look at that as a separate topic, but we integrate it in everything we do, just like the internet is integrated in everything we do. And that's why I'm very happy that ELF, our Liberal Forum, has made technopolitics their key priority, next to security and prosperity. Because, yeah, this is what we need to claim as liberals, those new technologies. And I think what we need to do to make ourselves the ones that can actually make that future with AI is three things. First of all, we need to educate ourselves. And that's why I'm very happy that ELF actually does a lot of events on AI, attracts a lot of knowledge from big companies, from experts, and I'm also very happy that this forum today actually attracts a lot of knowledge and that we can have this conversation. The second thing we should do is make sure we make our people ready, reskill our people. I learned that Estonia is actually the first country to integrate AI into their basic educational system. And I think that's a really good example for the rest of Europe that we can that we can talk about how we make sure that everybody can be part of that AI-proof future. And that it isn't something that divides us, but that it's an instrument that can make sure that everybody can be part of society. And the third thing we need to do is regulate. We need to regulate because we need to defend human rights. We need to regulate because we need to make it AI efficiently. And I'm very proud that the EU was the first one to actually adopt the AI Act in the world. An AI Act to protect us from really misuse of AI. For example, using ethnical, like, how do you say, like profiling in an illegal way, like abandoning that from AI. And for example, making sure that everything that's generated by AI has to be marked as that, so we know what we're talking about. And I think we have a lot to do still, because AI is developing rapidly, so we need to regulate rapidly. But what we need to do that, because it's such a new topic, is to have an open discussion with each other. And that's why I'm very happy to be here. I have a lot to learn about AI, and I hope to learn a lot from this audience. I hope to learn a lot from the experts in the panel. Because I think that in the end, we have to make sure that we can embrace AI for what it is, for the huge chances that it has, but we also have to really be careful of the threats that it has, because we need to protect our democracy. So I'm happy for the conversation. Thank you.
This event is called LibertyCon.
Yes.
And you're talking about regulation.
For sure.
How does this fit?
Well, That's a great question, and I'm happy to have it, because freedom is something that you need to regulate to be truly free. If you are alone in a desert, you're of course very free, but you're not very free to do anything. You're very free if you have an active perception of freedom. So we need to, because if you don't regulate freedom, then the strongest person has the most freedom, and the less stronger person doesn't. So true freedom means also regulation to make things fair. I'm a social liberal Democrat. And yeah, that's okay. That's a good discussion to have on a liberal forum. I hope you know the difference between active and passive liberty, and I'm a very strong advocate for active liberty, because that's the true liberty. And I'm happy to discuss. Thank you.
Thank you, Brigitte, for a great talk. I'm sure we can have a fruitful Q&A discussion after. Now I'd like to call on our other remaining speakers. We have Ines Holzegger and Sven Gerst, and we have Francesco Cappelletti as our moderator. So you're welcome.
I'll stay in the middle. Thank you, Brigitte, for warming up the platea here. So we will be controversial today, so everyone is happy. We are meant to speak about elections, actually, yes, in a liberal forum, and in this amazing setup. And thanks to everyone for having me. Thanks for the organizers, and thanks for this amazing balanced panel. I say balanced because on this side we have policy makers. Sorry, it's nothing negative, it's just a fact. And on the other side you have, well, not only a friend that is interested in philosophy, but also keep studying. Despite the very young age, he did an amazing career in academia, and wants to understand what is the relation between this world and the world of pure political philosophy. And I find myself in an advantaged position here because I am working in the European Parliament and together at the same time working in academia. So two fields that are completely opposite one to the other. I mean, we all wish that we could bring the same level of quality of academic paper into the regulations, but amendments are not like this, right, Brigitte? So, unfortunately, so it is important also to understand how this society will look like and how people that will do policy making will have to adapt, as you rightfully said. So maybe I would like to start with a general question, because we have to talk about decision making, we have to talk about politics, we have to talk about AI. It's a uniting factor at this moment because it's a reality. I don't want to go into philosophy and quote McLuhan, the Toronto School, and technological neutrality to say that we should have a technologically neutral approach, no? When introducing new things in our society, new technologies in our society. But yes, they have to be, because we live in governed by rule of law states, we have to be creating the framework so that those technologies are implemented correctly, reducing risks, and at the same time creating the level playing field, because yes, as liberal we also like free market, and we like competition, and we like growth, and we like to be as rich as we can thanks to the private sector that is, right? I see people nodding. Now, I want to start with a very basic question after this very, very small pitch, and before talking about this information. Who is from you in the stage using AI, and how do you find yourself? What's your relation with AI at the moment? Let's start with this side, and then...
Yes, it's working. Yeah, so in my daily practice, mostly my assistants use AI a lot to inform me with summaries of acts, to inspire me for speeches. Yeah, so in their general work, they daily use it. But for me, as a politician, I mostly use it to look up information, to be honest, because I think it's important to keep having my own ideas and my own thoughts.
Thank you. Ines, don't lie. You're using AI? or
Of
not?
course. Why would I
great.
lie?
No, because
I-
everyone was saying when ChatGPT was released, no, don't use ChatGPT, and then all the text look like the
I
same,
think-
bullet point and
I
stuff.
think
So
if you ask in this room who uses AI at least on a monthly basis, no one? On a weekly basis, on a daily basis? Well, I think that's the general public actually, and I also use it at least on a weekly basis. Of course, it also brings some difficulties, especially when it comes to what Brigitte said, summarizing things. There's still room for improvement on certain information being actually valid, but I think we'll get to that in a later question on how we can tackle this. But of course, I use it.
thank you. Sven can't say that he doesn't use.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I already dressed like a tech bro, so I kind of represent that vibe, and I think I feel reminded of the discussions that we had about like Facebook 15 or 20 years ago. Who's using Facebook, and then everybody's use it. Like, I mean, if we are not using AI at an hourly basis at this point, we would be really lost. So the question that we have to ask ourselves is not that we are using AI, but rather is AI using us at this point? And I think that is the right question to ask ourselves, because it is maybe the most transformational technological force that we have ever seen. And that's, I think, what we have to flesh out from a political, philosophical, but also a social level, I think.
Yes, and now, so far so good. You can use AI for enhancing, I don't know, surgeon. I think everyone agrees. If it can help to recognize patterns of disease beforehand, that would be a good use of AI, a good example of applying it. It can be used for possibly cutting the Leviathan, making bureaucracy small. You know how many hours per year, on average, in the EU we spend for bureaucracy? Like 32 hours of our life every year is to manage bureaucracy created by our own state. So if we can reduce this number, maybe we can have some, in my case, a spritz or a red wine, in her case, other, sure, in beers or, and exactly, but the AI can also be used to reduce complexity, therefore in public space, and maybe Ines, you can tell something about it because you have been working extensively, and please feel free to share also your experience.
It can also be a tool to bring government actually closer to the people and to open it, to make it more transparent. There's quite interesting tools out there for public sector to implement, so when you have a question that it can be directly answered and not go through layers and layers and layers of bureaucracy that we should also look into cutting. But I do think this is a tool and a great chance to give people more insight into what is happening on a government level.
Now, a follow up on this and give you a difficult question because you took the floor, and I'm very happy about it. But so who is, because we have to talk about the risks you started before, who is the gatekeeper then? You work, she's humble, but besides being a politician, she also works in the past year extensively in digital identity, and therefore we had some exchanges also in the past and today about privacy, and it's something very important. No? It refers to security, to personal security. In the Human Rights Charter, there is the right to privacy, for instance, and we hope that in the whole world it could spread this way. Who is the gatekeeper of this?
I don't think there's just one gatekeeper. I think there's, well, I know there's a lot of challenges in governments for implementing not only AI tools, but also digital tools in general that would make it easier, that would also cut some bureaucracy. I think it's, well, on the one hand, it's knowledge in the public sector bodies. On the other hand, I do think, and this is something that from a public representative point of view we need to tackle, is that there's still a lot of spread of misinformation on what AI can do, and it's at least in when you talk to people, they're mainly scared and don't really see that there's also a lot of opportunities for digital tools in general, but for AI also applicable. And I do think it's something that we slowly need to bring to the people, and this is a policymaker responsibility as well.
Thank you, Ines. Before, very quickly, a reaction also from you, Brigitte, because you mentioned one thing that, and we will maybe speak later also with the other speakers, which is education. I think there is need to educate, not only to reskill someone that is already beyond 50 and has to now deal with these AI tools at work, maybe, which needs it's a right to be skilled, but also how to educate new generations. But and this is perfectly fine. It's golden what you said. We don't touch it. But you spoke about regulation, sparkling debate, which is fine also for me. Maybe though, and I think your sense in your experience so far in the parliament, maybe AI can help with the issue of red tape, right? Maybe AI can be a tool for simplification. It's a machine. It doesn't have our political biases or political biases of Trump or other friends that are around at the moment. So maybe it could be used technically for simplifying our rules. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I agree with you very much. As was mentioned in the introduction, I was a deputy mayor before here, and my city was part of a pilot that actually uses AI to do faster permitting for building. And it's a great way to actually make processes faster and to make rules simpler, because now way too many hours are spent on on rules and on so it's definitely a chance for AI, and of course that's also needs to go hand in hand with the ideas that we already had. For example, on human rights, I see it as like we added a new layer of reality when internet came, and with AI we are maybe adding another layer of reality. That is not a reason to let go of the values that we already established with each other. We just need to make sure that those values are also reflected in those new realities. And that requires a lot of technique and a lot of thinking on how to do that right without making it a huge burden.
And do you think that your 719 colleagues in the European Parliament are all on this page? Or is still, because we're talking about AI, we're talking about metrics almost today, but I mean, in the end, people like paper and they're old school. Some people have been here for many decades. And so do you think that we can match somehow, at least at the European level, the pace of technology? It's impossible, my opinion. But no, but what's the trend?
It's impossible, and at the same time, it's our obligation. That's why my first point was we need to educate ourselves. And that with ourselves, I mean the politicians and the policymakers. Like, there's nobody waiting for naive and uninformed people making rules about very complicated things. So I think, that's something we need to pick up, and as liberals, we can be the front runners on that. So so let's take that role, but also accept that there are always people that are a bit slower and that are a little bit in the mainstream, but we'll get there in the end, as long as we take, if we put enough effort into to get there. And I mean, the majority of the parliament did adopt the AI Act, so and it was the first in the world to regulate AI. So I think that's an optimistic sign, and it's a chance for Europe to be a front runner on this.
Yeah. For those that don't know, the AI Act actually has quite an interesting component when it comes to private sector and companies, because instead of regulating the technology per se, it regulates the application, and there is a structure, a sort of triage, where harmful applications of AI are forbidden, then high-risk application, low risk, and so on, so forth, medium risk and low risk, and so forth. Oh, a lot of inputs from this side, Sven. I didn't forget about you, but I wanted to prepare the ground for some more tricky questions, less on policies and politics. No, your questions were tricky as well, but and more on the what is zooming out from this very specific domain. What is the trend that you see with AI in shaping our societies? What are the risks? No, the risks, no. What are the challenges, or even better, what are the hopes that we can have? So, I mean, we will change. We maybe already, we are young, but we are super young. Also, Sven is very young. But what is the trend for digital native people that will be growing up with the AI system on their hand? What society will change, like it or not? What do you think?
I mean, first of all, they don't have to wait for politicians to educate them on artificial intelligence. So when I see, oh, we have to take the people with us, they are already 5 steps ahead of any average politician. So to think, oh, we have to take the whole society with us and educate, I mean, they are already moving far beyond that. And there is, of course, a regulatory lack. Whatever you want to regulate, the new largest language model is already outperforming a lot of those considerations. I don't know how many of you already worked with O3 of ChatGPT. That is outperforming 99.9% of the people in this room, and I hold you in very high regards. But on standardized tests, it's already outperforming human capabilities on standardized tests. That's the aim we are, or that's the beast that we are talking about here, and beast is in this sense not necessarily bad, right? I just want to say that politicians, and I think that's the nature of the thing, politicians tend to think that politics downstream influences everything. However, it's more the fact that technology shapes reality, and technology shapes politics. It's a much bigger force. So instead of thinking, how can we regulate AI, we have to think, what will the future look like when AI is unleashed? However, this step in the European context never arrives because we first already think where to regulate in the very early steps. Now, problems that arise with that, first of all, we deprive ourselves from really thinking what are the implications. Is it artificial intelligence, for example, the hyper-liberating force that I see it in? If we talk about the future of work, if we unleash this growth potential for society, we could finally talk about financing universal basic incomes or things like this. This would not be possible if we regulate very early on, don't have the tech companies flourishing up here, and lose the geopolitical race. That's the second layer that we forget here. Because all of what we are discussing, Europe is, and especially artificial intelligence, doesn't know the boundaries of a nation state. It is a truly global phenomenon, as we saw. ChatGPT was implemented or taken by the hedge fund of DeepSeek. They built their model on it and took their own Chinese model at a fraction of the efficiency. We in Europe are looking at all of these developments in awe because we are 5 steps behind it. And that's the nature of the game and the beast that we are dealing with. And I will close here my first little riff for a second, but I think people have to understand that artificial intelligence is the biggest transformational, like technological transformational process that we cannot even imagine right now. And it leaves transformational processes ahead of us that are far beyond technological regulation. It will impact how we see governance in general, because it's not clear to me from a philosophical angle whether we will have liberal democracy when we unleash artificial intelligence. Then we have completely new hierarchy and dominance structures of private actors. Just look at how Google and OpenAI are already outperforming the growth and GDP of many of the nation states. Do they wait for the European Union to regulate them? They are far outperforming them in terms of power structures. These are the things that we should be looking for. And again, there's an optimistic scenario. Future of work. The artificial intelligence can unleash so much growth for everybody. So these are just a couple of things that I throw from this corner a little bit back. As I said, to sum up my little intervention here, we are far beyond already that. And the genie is out of the bottle. It's like, how far do we want to accelerate things here? Or do we want to, as Europe, remain in this museum of
So can I ask you a
the
few
world?
questions? So can I ask you a few questions? Because the first question I have, because I see a lot of opportunity actually in AI to simplify regulation in general, just like we were discussing cutting red tape. But on the specific AI regulation that we put in place so far, which actually tries to defend, for example, human rights, and like anti-racism regulation tries to make sure that it's like that there's some kind of ethical-based AI development. Which part of that regulation do you think leashes the development of AI, or is actually AI still ready to explode as a development? And what should we do, because that's my second question, as a government to like be part of that new reality?
So I'm not sure how individual, like for example, the structural issue that the European Union has in terms of technological being technologically advanced is not only that they have now the AI Regulation Act. I think, in fact, that harms rather little in comparison to all the other red tape that is over there.
Exactly.
But I think
we agree on that.
it's an obvious fact that we have seen, if we look at all the big players in terms of internet infrastructure, we see a disparity that is massive. I go back that it's not only about AI. I have warned about that, 15 years ago. If we look at the infrastructure of the internet geopolitically, what do we have as the infrastructure of the internet in the world? Google, Facebook, Amazon. Now we have in Russia, we have Yandex, Kontakte, and whatever it is, Ozon or whatever. And then we have in China, we have Alibaba, we have WeChat, and we have Baidu. Now, where are the Europeans? The Europeans build upon
this is where I wanted to go. This is exactly where I wanted to go. So let's stop bitching about like AI Act, because it's just the general layer that we needed to start the development. And let's talk about the market. How do we become part of the AI market as Europe? And what do we need to be part of those big players? That's different regulation, I think, that we really need to cut.
It's not only about the regulation or the geopolitical trends. It's de facto we don't have a Silicon Valley in the EU. We don't have a Silicon Valley. Now, the question is another one, because do we need a Silicon Valley, though? I mean, we always think about big scale, but for many applications of AI that are not the one in our palm, AI as ChatGPT or a large language model to generate something that shapes our society on a daily basis, and through which, and maybe also Ines can say something, youth people can be misinformed or disinformed or can be, manipulated. AI is applied also in small scales. I mentioned before healthcare, there is farming, there is automatic driving, there are a lot of smaller applications that don't need the large scale of a GDP-like company. Now, if you tell me that there is a need to be more competitive in the EU to foster those small companies, fine. But let's also be, and that's what I was saying there. When I was there, I tell you, everyone said, I mean, we can talk about AI all day, nobody knows shit about AI. Because what is AI? It's very subjective. If you ask a surgeon, helps the surgery. If you ask a farmer, it's to use meteorological data and big data to prevent floods. If you ask in aviation, it's to better understand when there is a problem with the so AI, what is it? But in our context, and sorry that I draw back to the written topic on the menu today, in our context, we speak also about democracy, and democracy means democratic elections, we hope, and we wish to all our colleagues that are having troubles at home. And democratic elections means also the way you get informed before voting, right? And we just said now that in many cases, and namely in 2024 in Romania, probably the most eclatant one, people got tricked by the algorithms, got tricked by how it works, the algorithm. And with youth, it's maybe even more difficult to draw a line. What do you think?
Yeah, this is what I was also talking about before. This AI does have a lot of chances, but of course there's also certain challenges to our democracy when it has never been easier to use a video and make this person, this politician, this CEO say something completely different, spread it, and have a lot of people react to it. But I would say it's not actually just a youth issue. When I'm campaigning outside on the street, I do also see a lot of older generations come up to me and show me certain things. From my party, we have our foreign minister who's very vocal on the Russian invasion on Ukraine. And the people, they have their information from Telegram groups where certain misinformation videos are spread. So I do think when we talk about how can we battle these issues, we need to look at, on the one hand, education in schools, in educational institutions, because I think that's something any society benefits from, having critically thinking people that also know or at least are able to look up certain information. And on the other hand, this is not enough. We also need to look at a cross-generational effort. And there I do see a chance with involving also the private sector. Very briefly, this is what I was explaining before as well. In Austria, we have a lot of people that are, well, not a lot. We have a few people that are a bit older that are scared to use digital tools that certain political forces also use to scare them, and that hampers innovation. And in Austria, we have companies that now give courses for using digital tools, AI, properly, and this is benefiting them. This is also benefiting the people, and I think we need to look at more models like that. How can we use private sector knowledge and resources to benefit the general public, and then in turn also benefit the companies?
That's true, and goes on with what Brigitte said before. However, might say education takes a while, right? It cannot be done in 2 months before the elections, and we have a sort of a framework in the European Union, the code of practice on disinformation, which is voluntary, so you can imagine. And information travels faster than anything else nowadays, and information environment generates information warfare, manipulation, foreign interference, so on and so forth. And you put in place the DSA, the DMA, Digital Services Act, to kindly invite big platforms to comply with our value-based system. And as a result, when there was Elon Musk speaking with the AfD candidate in Germany, there were 120 employees of the European Commission watching if X was complying with DSA. Now, we can discuss, and maybe we can discuss it, sorry, Brigitte, was a bit provocative for you, but we can discuss about the efficiency of it, because information passes anyway, right? So I want you to understand what I mean, and if you are a bit not frustrated, but if you understand, the frustration looking at this, I can't imagine in case of policymakers. So what could be a next step? Because if you ask for more enforcement, then you by force lead freedom in a way, right? In this case.
Well, that's to be discussed, but yeah, I think this is the most difficult and most dangerous part of these developments. That how do we defend democracy in those new information times? And yeah, I think in the basic, we have to defend human rights also in these kind of in these next technology. And I very much agree with you that I think elderly are actually more vulnerable than young people, because they didn't grow up with it. So they're in some sense naive when it comes to information. But I also agree with you that regulation is not going to be the main solution, because you can never ban out everything. It's too fast. So we have to make sure that people are less vulnerable. We have to make sure that people are more conscious, that they know what's out there. And we have to make sure that there are other information streams that also reach a lot of people. And that is when we go back to the market. So that's why I think it's very interesting to have this two-sided discussion here today. That on the one hand, yes, we cover the basics, we lay a foundation for that new reality. On the other hand, we have to make sure that we have an active market, an European-based market, that actually provides with the information that people do need. And it takes some bravery also to cut the huge companies that do not want to comply. And that's what the EU is trying.
Yeah, there is an issue that I always discuss with the students at the university, and it's the students of law, so I'm teaching there, and then it is the issue of accountability and forensics, right? So this is something very difficult to make someone accountable because you spread this information online. I mean, it's a bit like cybersecurity. I mean, you can cover your traces. If there is a dead corpse here, hopefully not, by the end of the conference, there will be some traces around, and maybe the police will find out who did what, who exaggerated with the party. But on the internet, you can cover up. You know, if you're good, you can be quite anonymous, and therefore it's quite difficult to create the same accountability that the rule of law would require for functioning democracy. And with some, if in general this can be tackled with like-minded partners like the US and therefore companies operating in this market with their limitations, it is quite more difficult when we are talking about some other social media that are outside of our bubble, if you want, extended bubble of the West and the Atlantic plus countries, and namely in this case, since I quoted before the Romanian election case, TikTok. Maybe Sven, it's a fact that many people are on TikTok, and I'm afraid that many people will start. My grandparents do, not on TikTok but on Facebook, reading news, right? I mean, if Facebook we can think of in 1 minute, tell me what can we do with TikTok in 1 minute, because I want to take a couple of questions.
Okay, now you put a time limit on me. Just two things on the mis and disinformation. I think we always focus on the potential harms here, and I know mis and disinformation very harmful for democratic discourse. However, philosophically, we have to, or historically, mis and disinformation has always been around in human societies. We have to ask ourselves, why do certain mis and disinformation land? Because people have certain values which they then anchor to that information landscape. Now, I can of course lament about the proliferation of mis and disinformation, especially in a world where content creation comes at zero marginal cost to you. Or I can say, well, it enables us who also spread certain information and certain narratives out there to produce content at zero marginal costs too. And we can enable our NGOs, our organizations to be as capable. We don't have to leave it to the Russian bot farms to spread their narrative, but we can counter-use the force of artificial intelligence to educate and to go out with information that we want to spread. So we have to see always both sides of the coin. We always focus on, the potential negative outcomes of the proliferation of of information through, for example, TikTok, or artificial intelligence used then on the platform of TikTok. I think we saw where this could lead to in the Romanian case, but instead some of my friends did a meta study before the European elections of, I think, 14 out of 25 countries that they looked at. The far right is dominating with 50% plus TikTok content over there. So they just have the hegemony because they use this technology much more liberally as we liberals do it ourselves. So to not engage here with a pun, but I think there's a liberating force for us, especially those who operate under cost constraints, which are many of the NGOs and many of the civil society actors. And we can also say, well, content production comes at zero marginal cost to us now, and we should use that. And we can also help there to educate the democratic discourse.
Perfect pitch. So technologically neutral approach, keep in mind, plus using the tools well, making people aware and educating people, not only when it comes to digital native, but also in terms of reskilling, and having a solid framework also for private sector to grow. These are 3 takeaways that you can have. And now 2 questions I can take, because we don't have much. 3 questions. You asked already questions. I'm very sorry, but we will have a discussion later with a coffee. 1, 2, and 3. Just be loud. And fast.
We heard about EU regulations, and so my question is simple. And you also mentioned that the people should be aware that there is AI used on certain websites, for example. So my question is simple. Are we expecting to have yet another pop-up that will inform us that there is AI used, and we're going to waste hundreds of hours to click and not read it anymore, just like cookies and GDPR we have?
Thank you. Who had the question? I have to stop in 2 minutes. Can I have 2 minutes? Okay, you, and then we have to stop. Please.
We're liberal with time.
We are liberals.
Concerning the regulation, how do you manage the cost of regulation? Also the China and US problem, like China and US is way ahead of Europe in this race. Europe is just stuck with regulations, and how do we cope up with that? And also the cost of regulation, how do we address that?
Okay, 30 seconds each. I have my clock 2 minutes back in time because I didn't put it back, so we have 2 minutes still. Joking. 30 seconds each for reacting to this.
Okay, so on the first question, I think the simple answer would be no. I think we can be smarter than that. I think we can have like a water mark in everything that's AI based. Like it's just an obligation to let people know that it is, and that's not too hard to do in a right way. I'm sure that Teggies can make the most beautiful way to do that. And second of all, the cost of regulation. Did you ever ask yourself what is the cost of non-regulation? Because the simple thing that we have now is that the AI Act says we ban things that are totally unethical. We make it obligated that you can see that something is AI made, and we test AI things. So we actually make a platform where AI can thrive, and I think that's the right way to go. Thanks.
Very quick reaction, if you have any other comments.
I mean, as I said, I think in general, besides the regulation issue, I always think what would happen most is to shift the mindset from, okay, these are potential harms, to how can we leverage the options that we want, the liberating forces. I think liberating forces, we don't talk enough. It is the growth potential of our lifetime, and that needs to be unleashed to solve a lot of our social issues, in fact.
No, something I really needed to add, because I think you're totally right. The real thing that we need in Europe is cheap energy, so we can have
100%.
Yeah, and an open market, so we can have development. We need to work on the ecosystem. We need to work on everything that Draghi actually put into place. That will make our society open to AI and really make the development possible, the market side possible. That's what we should focus on.
Last sentence, sorry, but this is another amazing discussion we will have on AI and sustainability. Invite us again. 10 seconds. And thank
10
you guys.
seconds. We need to harness the opportunities that AI gives us while not being naive and also looking at what it could do to our democracies. But this is why I think having critical thinking people has to be our utmost priority.
And having discussions like this, for which I thank the speaker and you all for being with us. Thank you so much.